Wow, it's a good fight, bro. Nice, good left hook. Wow, good right. Jacobs cracked him with a good right. He kind of buckled. Nice, nice. That was a great fight, guys. I am just looking at the Danny Jacobs, Sergey Derevyanchenko fight again, just to give you guys a fight analysis on it. You know, this fight is why Danny Jacobs is who he is. That's why Danny Jacobs didn't lose any credibility for beating or for losing rather to Gennady Golovkin when he lost, and of course his first loss was from Dmitry Pitrog, which doesn't even fight anymore. So to some strange circumstances or whatever. But you know, this was a great fight. If you go round by round, okay, on how this fight played out. Sergey caught Jacobs, unclenching. He kind of did what Trinidad used to do. Trinidad used to unclench, and then immediately after unclench, he would give you a check hook. In this case, Derevyanchenko would throw that right, and he caught Danny Jacobs. And I guess Danny Jacobs looked at the ref like, for refuge, but there was no break. He never broke. So you protect yourself at all times. So that was actually, a good punch. But later in that round, Jacobs showed him what his power was about. He made Derevyanchenko respect him. He hit him high on top of the head, which he lost his composure. His gloves hit the canvas. That is a knockdown. Okay, so he scored the first knockdown and really the only knockdown of the fight. Round two was more of the same. Danny Jacobs using the ring, and Derevyanchenko in later part of round two caught him with a good left hook that set up a good right hand, which that kind of had Danny Jacobs kind of wobbly, his feet crossed, and a lot of people say, oh, he was just off balance. But see, here's the deal. If somebody hits you with enough force of a punch that makes your feet, that makes you readjust, it is a hard punch. Now, was he critically hurt? No, he wasn't critically hurt. However, Danny Jacobs, he is a warrior. He has power, but his power is parallel with all the other skills that he has. You know what I'm saying? In rounds 3 and 4, he really showed Derevyanchenko what counterpunching was. He had great body punches. And then if you notice, rounds 4 and 5, I would give to Jacobs. And then immediately after like 5 and 6, he started breathing heavy. And that lasted from 7, 8, 9. All those rounds belong to Danny Jacobs. And I know a couple of those punches, that Danny Jacobs caught Sergey with, he would catch him on the top of the head. Those punches were high, and it's smart to go high because a lot of fighters, they're good at taking punches to the chin, directly on the chin, around the chin area. You know what I mean? But he caught Derevyanchenko with the right, on the like the temple, the higher temple area, which a lot of guys are soft up there due to their, their skull structure or whatever. They can't take punches like the jaw. So a lot of times if a person is headhunting, and they're aiming for that jaw a lot, they should really aim that punch higher. Because I remember when Sugar Shane Mosley hit Jesse James Leha with a punch right here. You know what I mean? And it just took him out of the game completely. Not to say Danny, because, Sugar Shane was the best lightweight ever to me, period. But Danny Jacobs hit Sergey with that punch in the second round and throughout the fight, really, and it always kind of disembobulated him, but it wasn't like that first round. I don't think he anticipated it because you look at the training with 16-ounce gloves, then they were in 10-ounce gloves on the fight with no headgear. So this was the difference. You know what I'm saying? He caught also Peter Quillen with that same punch. So that was like, that right hand, he aims it up high, it can do wonders. You know what I mean? To a lot of fighters, can do some pretty pretty good damage. You know what I'm saying? But rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12, I believe, belonged to Sergey. Sergey came back. He rallied. I guess, he wasn't throwing the left hook. He threw it early, and I think those right hand high punches that we just discussed were affecting his left hook, and he was reluctant to throw it. You know what I'm saying? I got to tell you guys, I love Roy Jones Jr.'s commentation. You know what I'm saying? I love to commentate with him one day or hang out with the guy. But he was just like round 2, going back to that. Jim Lampley was like, I think he should just go back to the body like he's been doing before in his professional career. And Roy was like, no, Jim, because the punches up top have him reluctant to go downstairs because it leaves him open. I love it, man. It was cool. And, how they go back and forth, because you can tell it's like this underlined argument, throughout the commentations, between Max Kellerman, Jim Lampley, and Roy Jones Jr., and then these guys, they have their different perspective, some biased, some unbiased, some, you know what I'm saying? But it's a good balance. And I'm going to miss that, man. I got to say that about HBO boxing. I'm going to miss HBO because, again, grew up watching it. You know what I mean? In fights like this, the commentation, no disrespect to Sugar Ray Leonard and, Sergio Mora and those guys. They're doing a good job, and Showtime, they got their own thing over there. But HBO, you know what I'm saying? It was just the passion that Jim Lampley had. You know what I mean? The expertise that Roy Jones Jr. had. You know what I'm saying? It's like, they knew their stuff and they were passionate about what they were doing. You know what I mean? Just like I love, commentating and doing these videos for you guys, because I love to do it, But anyway, I'm going to miss HBO. I think that the 12th round, going back on the fight, Sergey really put it on Jacobs. He had him wobbly the last, minute of that round. And because he caught him with some good great punches, and he really started letting that left hook go finally, because Danny Jacobs never gave him anything to respect again. Danny Jacobs was catching him in those middle rounds, but then the late rounds, he kind of, I don't know if he wanted to start to fade. I think he wanted to coast because he knew, okay, I got enough of these in the bag. I don't have to knock this guy out. I don't have to go for a great finish because I felt I'd done enough in the earlier rounds. Well, so did Oscar De La Hoya in the Felix Trinidad fight. You know what I mean? You can't throw caution to the wind. And you look at this fight. This fight here, was a split decision win for Danny Jacobs. So it was a lot closer than he thought it was. So, cool. Chris Algieri's in his corner. I wonder what he's going to do when he comes back. So let me check out the scorecards for you guys.
Two New Yorkers. Who handles that? To the scorecards, give another round of applause for these two warriors.
Gotta applaud that, brother. I mean, the fight was great. It was a great fight.
And now, after 12 rounds of boxing, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judge Julie Letterman scores the contest 114-113. Derevyanchenko.
Now, there you go.
Judge Shrek scores the contest 115-112. Jacobs. And Judge Steve Weisfeld scores the contest 115-112 for a winner by split decision. And now the IBF middleweight champion of the world, Daniel Miracle Man Jacobs.
Now that just shows you, about that coasting. De La Hoya thought he had it in the bag. Like, again, this fight, Jacobs was looking like, oh, hell. You know what I mean? He's raising his hand like, dude, like, am I really going to get this? You know what I mean? And you could tell he thanked God after he got the decision. But, again, that's one of the things that you don't want to do ever in a fight, especially for a championship belt when no one's the champion. Maybe if he was already the champion, he had the belt, you have to take you have to take the belt from the champion. I get that. But these guys were fighting for this belt. You know what I'm saying? So, this could have happened a different way. That's why you shouldn't coast. Nonetheless, it was a good fight because Danny Jacobs, he has a little bit of Hopkins in him, a little bit of Roy Jones Jr. He switches like Terrence Crawford. He has great power and short punches to being a longer guy because he's 6 foot tall. You know, him and Charlo are tall middleweights. You know, they're up there with Thomas Hearn'S, the hitman. You know what I mean? They're that type of height and that type of length, and they generate power in their punches. You know, I heard he calls out Canelo, so I want to see that.
The middleweight prize fight. Give me your thoughts on what just happened.
Well, you got to understand, first off, I want to thank everybody who came out to support this great event today. New York was in full effect. I'm very, very, very grateful for tonight. Thank you guys. But much hats off to Sergey Derevyanchenko. He's a true competitor. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. For those who said this was going to be an easy fight, didn't know very much about Sergey Derevyanchenko. I knew exactly what this guy had underneath that heart, and he showed true grit. I take my hats off to him, nothing but respect. But I felt like I dug deep. I felt like I used my range, try to use my boxing ability in the outside as much as I can, because those are my best attributes.
Did you believe that you needed to win, or at least was it a good idea to win that 12th round to ensure that you won the fight? Because you took real risks in a fight that it looked like you were a little bit ahead in.
Well,
yeah, he was wobbly.
I wanted him to get his shots off, and then I knew it was time for me to get mine off. So he looked like he was gassed in after the 5th round. It looked like he was gassed in. And from sparring him, I know that he get a little tired in Browns. His fights and studying him, so I knew exactly if I let him look.
I think it was a hook.
Oh, I seen the light. I mean, I seen stars, but it didn't really hurt me. You know, he's a true competitor, strong as nails.
I seen stars, but it didn't hurt me.
That's the next question. This is a very deep and excellent middleweight division, headed by now Canelo and Triple G. You had a very close fight with Triple G. You're right there toward or at the top of the division. But the question is, who were you in with tonight? We knew he was good.
Danny Jacobs is well spoken. You know, I think he just speaks from the heart.
He was able to gas me at times, but I showed true grit.
You know, and he's just honest. You know, I've seen stars. You know, he's able to gas me. You know, that's the type of fighter you want. You want an honest fighter. You don't want a fighter that rests his ego on his shoulders. You know what I mean? You want a guy like that just tells the truth about what happened in the fight. And a lot of people will say, no, I wasn't hurt. No, I wasn't dazed. You know, and he clearly say, I was gassed. I seen stars. He hit me with some good shots. That's what you do. It's prize fighting. It's boxing. You know, they hit one another. You know what I mean? And he made it competitive. You know, and times you think that it was like you're gonna see a lull in the fight. You know, Jacobs hauls off and chops him with a right or that left hook or the pounding punches to the body, and they both gave hard punching power, body shots. You know what I mean? And see, when Danny Jacobs stopped landing as many hard punches upstairs, that's when Derevyanchenko was able to get in that body work. You know what I mean? And he said he was getting gassed. But you remember, these guys were sparring partners for over 300 rounds. So they knew exactly what they were doing. Like he said, I knew exactly who I was in the ring with because I sparred with this guy. It reminds me of Roy Jones Jr. and Lou Del Valle. If you guys have watched boxing long as I have, Lou Del Valle used to spar with Roy Jones, but he never told Roy Jones he wanted to fight him until like a contract came to Roy Jones. It's like, hey, Lou Del Valle wants to fight you. It's like, okay, that's jacked up. I used to be your sparring partner. Why didn't you tell me I wanted to fight you? And that was actually Roy Jones Jr.'s first knockdown, of his career up into that time anyways. You know what I'm saying? The prime Roy. So, he took they both had the same trainer. So, and it was a difficult fight. You know what I mean? It was very interesting because these guys know a lot about each other. Like he said, hey, I knew that he gasses, you know what I mean? And like I said, later, like the mid rounds, he started gassing out. So he knew that, you know what I mean? So, let's see what he says about Canelo.
Neighborhood, including guys like Andrade and the Charlo brothers.
Andrade's a good one. I would like to see that.
Do you think Derevyanchenko is at that level? Or are you going to have to go to a higher level to beat those guys?
Sergey is as tough as it comes. He is one of the most skillful fighters that I have stepped in the ring with, including Triple G. This guy, Triple G didn't avoid him for no reason. This guy is definitely.
I was just going to get to that.
Didn't have much to offer, so he went with bigger fights. But this guy is as tough as it get. I knew I had to accept this fight because I wanted to strap, and that made me more of a guy that people are willing to take risk with. Because before, after the Triple G fight, people looked at me as more of a risk than a reward.
Now, given the network and promotion.
Yeah, I want to touch that on Triple G for a second. I'm glad he mentioned that. Golovkin, that was Golovkin's mandatory for the IBF. That's why they're fighting for this belt now. And, of course, Golovkin, you passed on this fight. And I always wondered, like, why would you pass on the fight? You know, he was waiting on for Canelo. He was asking for these demands. And Oscar De La Hoya said they were going to actually go with Jacobs to fight Canelo instead of Golovkin. You know what I mean? And you knew that really wasn't in the plan of Golden Boy because they knew Golovkin was just primed and prepared enough to fight. You know what I mean? At his age, they know they had him at a perfect time. But Golovkin, his downfall was waiting around for Canelo Alvarez, which was stupid. He got his payday. He's made his money. He doesn't know him to do drugs or have a crazy life or some kind of gambling problem or nothing. So he has money. So he didn't need that money. He should have fought his mandatory, which was Derevyanchenko. You know what I mean? And then you could see from this fight here, Derevyanchenko would have gave Golovkin a fight. And like Danny Jacobs said, there's a reason why, you know, Golovkin avoided this guy. He didn't want that type of fight. If he wanted it for the money. You know what I mean? So I think Golovkin didn't want to fight a risk. He wanted the reward, like Danny Jacobs said. That's why a lot of guys didn't want to fight Danny Jacobs, you know, like Billy Joe and stuff. And I would like to see that fight. Hopefully that fight will happen one day, you know. But again, you have fights that could have happened that didn't happen, you know, like Andrade and Billy Joe. They supposed to fought, you know. Andrade fought and he got that belt, but, you know, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, because of what happened, you know. So Eddie Hearn needs to step up, man. He really does need to step up with that. And he needs to give us a fight like this. Derevyanchenko, Danny Jacobs was a great fight. You know, I had chill bumps coming when some of these punches landed. A lot of these exchanges were good. I got a lot of the material on my Facebook Counterpunch Boxing News page, you know, and then I have clips of this fight. So if you guys wanted to check it out, if you don't have HBO, you know, you can check out some of the highlights and stuff. Like I got little 30-second clips on there, you know. So it's a lot of fun stuff on that Facebook page. But I want to see what he says about Canelo.
Realities. A lot of people have been talking about you as the potential next big fight at middleweight for Canelo. Is that the fight you want?
We absolutely want Canelo. I think that's a fight that the fans want, especially those who was in agreement with me when I say I felt like I beat Triple G. This would be a great fight for the fans. And now that I have the scrap, there's going to be more in the pudding for everybody. So let's make this fight happen.
So Canelo would be the priority. What about a rematch with Triple G?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Triple G is no longer a champion. I want to go after the champions, and then I'll give Triple G the rematch.
Wow.
Thanks, Daniel, for another excellent performance. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Jim?
I like what he said. You know, Danny Jacobs is a stand-up guy. You know, him and Canelo Alvarez, along with Anthony Joshua, are those type of guys that they have prestige. They have class. You know what I mean? They, you know, they're role models. They're role model material. You know what I'm saying? Danny Jacobs, you know, he's a respected person in his community of Brooklyn. You know, so is Canelo Alvarez. So is Anthony Joshua. You know what I'm saying? You don't really, these guys are positive role models, you know, in and out of the ring. And that's important. But, you know, Danny Jacobs was like, hey, I absolutely would want that fight. Let's make that fight happen. So I would love to see Canelo and Jacobs. And honestly, I think that this fight should have already happened. This is the fight. Canelo and Jacobs should have been the fight that should have been headlined, and Golovkin should have took the dive and fought Derevyanchenko. And if he would have got past Derevyanchenko, he would have kept his IBF belt. It would have been that much sweeter. But things happen for a reason, and it's a good reason this did happen, because I'm glad Danny Jacobs does have this IBF strap, because, you know, regardless of what people think, if he won that fight with Golovkin, now Golovkin is not a champion, and he is. And he said after he fights Canelo, he will give Golovkin the rematch. And that's how you do it, having a man of prestige like Danny Jacobs. This was a great fight. And you look forward to him on DAZN along with Canelo Alvarez, and hopefully we can get that fight in May. Okay, so let's root for that fight. You know, if they have a poll, let's vote for that fight, right? They're both on DAZN, so you know, it's like Oscar De La Hoya said, they're willing to work with anybody. So obviously they're willing to work with Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. So anyway, guys, this is my fight study on this matter. Thanks for watching. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunched. Peace.